Hey, Skift listeners, hear about the latest trends in the travel industry with the Brand USA Talks Travel Podcast. Right now, listen to special live from IPW interviews featuring U.S. Travel's Jeff Freeman.
DMOs are at the heartbeat of U.S. travel.
Liz Bittner from Travel South.
A lot of key gateway markets are back.
LA Tourism's Adam Burke.
We all win when we all partner together.
Plus, Brand USA's Stacey Melman and Jackie Ennis with international travel trends and Chris Thompson's farewell finale. I'm Mark Lapidus. Join us for Brand USA Talks Travel on your favorite podcast platform.
Brand USA Talks Travel.
You're listening to the Skift Podcast. Today we feature a rebroadcast of a session that took place at Skift Global Forum East in December of last year. As we prepare to return to Dubai on December 12th through the 14th, we're revisiting a few of the most popular sessions from last year's forum. Enjoy the conversation.
Welcome to Skift Global Forum East. Please join us in welcoming on stage His Excellency Helal Saeed Almarri, Director General, Dubai's Department of Economy and Tourism, and Rafat Ali, CEO and Founder, Skift.
Your Excellency, welcome to Skift Global Forum East. Thank you for your time. Thank you for doing this for us. And we've had, over the last day and a half, a lot of discussion on the future of travel, Dubai's role in it, Dubai's, in many ways, leading the recovery coming out of the pandemic and setting a template for the world. You are in charge of only the two most important parts of Dubai, which is economy and tourism. Happens to be the biggest engine that drives Dubai. From your perspective, how do you envision the future of tourism mixed with commerce for Dubai? And then we'll get into some of the details as well.
So first and foremost, I'd like to welcome everyone, especially those visiting from abroad. I have the after lunch slot, so I hope everyone can stay awake. First of all, sure. You know, maybe what I would focus on is when you gave the introduction to me, you mentioned economy and tourism, and I think it's all underpinned. You know, why are we so successful in tourism, but also in driving the economy? It's all underpinned by some of the basics that we all know. You know, people really today, especially after COVID, they look and see. You know, they look at security. They look at healthcare. They look at, the soft and hard infrastructure that is available in a place. And, you know, as you know from all the global rankings in things like security and others, the UAE and Dubai and Abu Dhabi come, you know, in the top of those tables. And many of us take it for granted. But I think in today's ever-developing world, with all of the, if you like, regular black swan events that we keep seeing, it becomes more and more important to people. The other thing is Dubai has obsessed for a very long time about the happiness of the people, both from here and residing here, and really tried to put in place very clear, very numbers-driven plans on how this city can become the best place to live and work.
Right.
Now, of course, if you think as a family unit, what makes this city the best place to live and work? It really means that, you know, you want to have a level of satisfaction and enjoyment, and you want to make sure that, you know, every weekend or every spare moment you have, you feel like you're on holiday, right? And you get, and seeing so many people from around the world moving here through COVID and since COVID, we've heard many of the stories about how they've, how they've interacted with the city. For us who have been in the city for many years, it's a little difficult to see the change, or it's a little difficult to see the progress, because you take everything for granted. Everything's on your fingertips, on the phone. There's no bureaucracy. You always have something very enjoyable, very authentic to do and engage with, whether it's whether it's on a weekday, between meetings, after work, before work, or it's at a weekend. And I think we're blessed to have leadership that really looks very carefully at the people and what they need, and the decision making is made based on what's good for Dubai, what's good for the people here, socially, economically. There's no politics, there's no ulterior motives. It's all done, in a very sort of somewhat easy way. And I think that's why, that's how the commerce and the tourism come together. Because if my kids tell me they don't want to go on holiday during this break, they want to stay here, then and all the other kids from around the world want to come here as well, then I know we're in a good place.
Why is Dubai is, and I've been coming here, we talked a little bit before, I've been coming here for 25 years. I was here before the Burj was here as well. What I've seen is Dubai is very obsessed with efficiency. Starts at the airport, you enter, it's very quick, everything is taken care of. From a business perspective, efficiency is it looks like one of the biggest driving forces for you to remove friction for people who are visiting, for people who are doing business, for people who are living, for people who need to interact with the government. So that has been an obsession in a good way, I guess.
Look, I think like an organization, you have a corporate culture. Effectively, you have a culture in this city which is around hospitality and efficiency. And I think it's a cultural thing that makes that happen. And again, it starts at the top. His Highness Sheikh Mohammed, you'll see him visiting the airport, visiting some of the major, places where one would think there might be some bottlenecks, or one would think there might be a lack of efficiency. And you see him personally checking on those things. And that's something from 20, 30 years ago. That's not something from today.
Right.
That permeates down and has become a way of living. Today, you'll find, very few people in the hotels here, talking about how well they're doing. I remember when we did the tourism strategy in 2013, and we sat with all the people in the industry, and everybody was talking about like 93, 96, 97%, satisfaction at 100%, all these numbers. And then, one of the GMs of one of the famous hotels here, he said, we need to forget all of that and we need to focus on the 2 and 3%. And those 2 and 3%, we need to make them points of positive surprise. And
points of surprise.
And I remember also, over the years, we had things go viral on social media, like hotels noticing that the toiletries of some of their VIP guests were close to finishing and bringing the exact same brand, putting it there. And these small touches you see across the city, and the level of care taken by everybody, from a CEO down to a concierge, down to somebody working in a shop. I think that's what really defines the city. As well as that, of course, the team use the digital infrastructure we have to monitor all these things.
Right.
And we have people in the team who obsess over the numbers. And, if the numbers aren't good for whatever reason, in terms of efficiency, in terms of satisfaction, or we see them shaking, that information is transparently available to all of the stakeholders within the particular sector or industry or whatever else. And, we've set up, we've set up an entity for consumer protection and fair trade, and they play a big role at the other end of the spectrum where there are problems.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that having people on the ground, 24/7. Getting a feel for these things and making sure that everything is at the standard it should be across the whole city. I think that's key. And
right.
people, and the Majlis system, which Dubai is brought up on, which is the open Majlis, which is like the open sitting room where people can speak to the leadership, that's moved on to social. And today, if somebody gets a bad service somewhere, they'll jump onto social,
right.
Whatever it is. And that's become something very accepted here. And it's become something that people react fast to. They see it as a challenge. I'm going to fix it. And I think the very positive mindset, it permeates through the city. And I think that I think that's what drives, from all the people in this room and all the people working in all the different industries, and especially the hospitality industry, you could see how they're, really driving that agenda forward.
Right. And I think Your Highness just announced the 20-minute city. This is the 2040 vision that you have. I read, I think 2 days ago, was announced. And the concept of the 20-minute city is, and this is the city master plan, is to divide the city into 5 regions, or at least from an organizational perspective, and make sure each of these are self-sufficient places where people who live or who come as a tourist have everything within 20-minute walking distance or a bike ride. That's what I read.
Yeah, I think there's I think your question simplified something which is obviously quite complex. So, His Highness announced some time ago a 2040 master plan, and what you're seeing now is different elements of that master plan, being announced in the final project form. Specifically, Dubai has 5 areas to the city. The newest one being the Expo area, and Marina is one. This area is another, and those areas. A number of them today have all of the amenities you could imagine. Everything from shopping to healthcare to everything you could imagine. What is really being looked at again very systematically is there anything missing from these? Of course, people will still commute from one area in the city to the other. They want to go to their favorite restaurant or whatever else. But what we want to make sure is that there's not an unnecessary commute. There's not anything you need, is there at your fingertips again. And we see that, we already see it working in many of these urban centers. And we also see from a tourism perspective, you may know that we have one of the highest repeat visitations in the world. And what's interesting is that you see different tourists finding different parts of Dubai and finding their own story,
right?
And you find them coming back time and again and living that. And it's quite good, because today when I meet people coming here and they obviously ask me for recommendations, I can give them one of the very cliche, cheesy tourist experiences for a day, because they probably won't have done it. They will have done all these other special experiences that everybody finds in the city, and the mainstream tourist stuff is still fantastic. I know we're sitting in Jumeirah today, but if you look at the water park Jumeirah has, or Atlantis, there's no family tourist that should miss that, because they are the best in the world. So I think we're very lucky on that side of things, and for those of us who don't like commuting, it's great, because we don't have to leave our square mile.
Right.
Hey, Skift listeners, hear about the latest trends in the travel industry with the Brand USA Talks Travel Podcast. Right now, listen to special live from IPW interviews featuring U.S. Travel's Jeff Freeman.
DMOs are at the heartbeat of U.S. travel.
Liz Bittner from Travel South.
A lot of key gateway markets are back.
LA Tourism's Adam Burke.
We all win when we all partner together.
Plus, Brand USA's Stacey Melman and Jackie Ennis with international travel trends, and Chris Thompson's farewell finale. I'm Mark Lapidus. Join us for Brand USA Talks Travel on your favorite podcast platform.
Brand USA Talks Travel.
One of the plans that you're trying to figure out with the 20-minute city is walkability, and a lot of cities are thinking about walkability. How do you try and balance that? I guess with the weather as well. Obviously, weather it's a part of the city, part of this region as well. So, is walkability, as you're thinking about commerce, you're thinking about tourism, an important part for you?
No, definitely. I mean, look, we His Highness the Crown Prince, His Highness Sheikh Hamdan, is very, very, interested in wellness, and we've spent a lot of time over the last 10 years really looking at how to improve the wellness of a city. And those of you who attended the city briefing earlier would have seen that we had our Dubai Fitness Challenge, which is a 30 days, which just passed 2.2 million participants. And all sort of international rankings and measures and everything now show that Dubai over the last 6 years has shifted to become, if not the top, one of the top active cities in the world in terms of people, in terms of movement, in terms of fitness levels. And the government has made a very concerted effort to build the necessary infrastructure needed. So if you take the example you gave earlier, which was the cycling tracks, they've made sure that on a weekend in many communities now, or many areas, many of these urban centers, you don't really need to use your car because you could use your bike to get everywhere. When it comes to the summer, of course you need to choose the right time of day to go for your exercise. But at the same time, we don't have schools in the summer, so therefore the different rush hours is slightly less congestion. So it works out well. Also, keep in mind that there are large areas which are air conditioned through district cooling.
Right.
Keep in mind that all of our power comes from solar and gas, so it's very clean. And a lot of the urban design is done in a way, to use natural shading and other things to bring down temperatures. So you see a lot of these big districts today. It's very different than being sort of out in the sun. And we see more and more tourists, obviously benefiting from that.
So you mentioned at least a version of sustainability, and obviously sustainability has become certainly one of the biggest topics that we cover at Skift in the travel industry. As you're looking at sustainability and becoming, I guess, less carbon positive to more carbon neutral as a city, how are you thinking about sustainability, particularly from a travel point of view, and what is your role to help the private sector become a lot more sustainable?
So I think there's a number of layers. The first layer is, the country's commitment to carbon neutral by 2050. Right, that's the first part. The second part is, I would say, is a challenge we all have, because there's a big debate on from the perspective of supply.
Right.
What will be possible by 2030? Are there enough electric cars going to be built, given the supply chain, by 2030 for all to be electric? We've done our calculations, and Dubai is definitely going to stay at the forefront. The numbers today, I'm not sure what's announced or not announced, so I won't mention the exact numbers by 2030. But you will see from a transportation perspective, public and private transportation perspective, you will also see from the infrastructure needed, for that, put in place and taken very, very seriously. And we will be at the forefront of this globally. The other thing is we work extremely closely with specifically the hotels and the tourism sector to really ensure that we have a carbon calculator, which is, all of them have, which is linked to the Electricity and Water Authority, to really look at how all the initiatives which are being put in place, with the new technologies coming out and everything else, can be measured, and we can ensure that all the improvements from an environmental perspective and a carbon footprint are sort of tracked and recorded. Mm-hmm. And in addition to that, we're putting layer upon layer of regulation to push everybody in the same direction. Okay. So things from the use of single plastic, things from plastic bags, single use of bottles. We've just had an initiative which has gone very well, which is called Dubai Can, playing on words, where so far 50 corporates have sponsored water filtration systems across the city in public tourist areas, so tourists can fill their bottle. Many of the hotels, including the ones we're in, have also gone the same route, and they've changed the whole system and put in systems themselves. Right. We're definitely at the forefront globally of this. Maybe there's a few small islands somewhere that have done it ahead of us, but in terms of scale, we're definitely at the forefront of this. And with COP28 next year, right, which we're holding at the Expo site, this topic, and for those of you who don't know the way COP works, is the file comes to the country when we hold the event. So we get the file at the event next November or December now, November, December. And then we have the file for a year. So I can see, if we were speaking, hopefully at your next event here or the one after, you'll be seeing, a lot more coming out in the next 12 months and the 12 months after that because of the engagement on this very important topic. Needless to say, from a team perspective, it's definitely the easiest topic to get everyone passionate about. Mm-hmm. So it's going to move the fastest.
Thank you for that. One of the things that Dubai, I was actually, I think you recently appointed a head of AI for Dubai crypto. I think you are in charge of crypto as well. Sorry about that. Whatever's happening in the market. There's a method to this madness, which is there's a reason why you are on top of these new things. Like people assume you do this because it's the latest thing, but Dubai has a thinking behind why we should have a crypto policy before anybody else has, why we should have a head of AI before anybody else has at the top level, so that they permeate through. And then as I said, there's a method to the madness. So what is that method to the madness as you're thinking about?
Look, I think in the absence of regulation, you do have madness, right? And I think what we've seen in the crypto world is evidence of that. So what we saw, quite early on is that virtual assets and blockchain and Web3 as an industry as a whole, it's not, cryptocurrency and Dogecoins. It's a lot more beyond that. And as you look at the way the deep tech is evolving, and as and whether it's going to take 1 year, 2 years, or 5 years, what was important is that we, as a government and as a regulator, work extremely closely, both with other regulators, but also with the industry, to ensure that this does not remain a grey area. Because if it's a grey area, it's risky for AML, it's risky for KYC, it's risky for many other things. And also consumers can't be protected because there's no regulation around that. And you've seen that around the world.
Right.
We definitely need to ensure that in any new industry, the limit of the progress of the industry and the innovation cannot be the limit of our understanding as a regulator or as a government. We have to find a way to work with the sector. And the tourism sector is evidence of that. We have, and I'm looking at Abu Khalifa in the front row. We have hotels working with him on a digital solutions for ID, for everything else, which is groundbreaking and way ahead of anywhere else. And if we didn't embrace what the innovators in the private sector and academia wanted to do, and we didn't encourage that, the city would not move as fast as it's moving. And that is at every level. You mentioned virtual assets. When it comes to all the other sectors, AI and biotech and everything else, you need to ensure that the sectors which are going to have a big influence of the future, you have the right leadership in place. And our Minister of AI, who's also leading our Digital Chamber of Commerce, is really making sure that him and his team, who have the knowledge in this space and have the experience in this space, are able to interact with the leaders in this space from around the world to ensure the readiness of us as a country and as a city to really not only manage through it, but also to ensure that we grow new industry sectors. And when it comes to, we circle back to tourism again, to your original question, we see from the events industry, from the business travel generally, these new industries are really driving a lot of travel. And, especially as they grow and they're in their nascent stage and people need to learn. Is
attracting startups a big part of your thought process, like startups to come here, startups to travel startups, for instance, to be based and create travel startups here? You have the ecosystem, you have people, the large companies that they can experiment their new services with. So how much is travel startups and startups themselves?
Yeah. So look, in terms of startups, I would say we're definitely one of the top, if not the top, growing hub for startups. And startups come here in two ways: either as a startup starting up, or they're imported once companies reach sort of Series B or C financing, and they need to attract the right international talent, and they need to have the right domicile and everything. We see a lot being attracted here from a much wider region. When it comes to travel tech, we have also set in place an accelerator along with Emirates Airline, and we have an Intalaq program, and we have other partners who are also involved with that. Because what we realized is that the startups in the travel tech space, it's not usually, they come with obviously amazing talent, and usually the funding is not the issue either. Usually what they want is to be networked into the industry sector. And I have to really thank the sector in Dubai, because they're always really, really proactive when it comes to working with startups on new use cases, working with startups to try to see, how successful it could be. And we've seen even, many of the bigger players end up buying stakes in those startups and making them a main part of the business. And I think that innovation in travel and travel tech has really helped us as a city, and has managed to help us attract some of the best minds here.
We're closing in on time. One of the things that Dubai does very well is obviously the collaboration between the private and the public sector, which I think is envy of many cities around the world. As you think about this moment for the larger region, UAE as well as Middle East, we were talking a little bit before we went to the stage. Does it give you hope that this is the exact moment with all the stuff that's happening in this region? I talked about this on the panel before as well. This is Middle East's moment. In many ways, it feels like it. Does it feel like it to you with all that's happening, the opening and the world's perception changing as well?
Look, I think the way I would look at it as follows is, we're sitting today in a region which is experiencing a great deal of growth. And if you look, for example, not just at the UAE, but if I take some of the larger economies around, if you look at India and how it's fared and how producing almost a unicorn a week, and the type of policies and the type of forward thinking there. If you look at the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the amazing progress they've made on their future plans and where they're going. If you look at our other neighbors, if you look even in Africa, and you look at many of the countries that have really turned a corner in terms of governance, in terms of growth, there's something common, and in a very wide geographic region with a young population, and you see people striving to grow their economies and increase the level of education, increase the level of tech talent and everything else. I see only positive. I don't believe, we in Dubai don't believe, even to a small extent, that it's a zero-sum game. We believe that this, growth regionally will definitely attract a lot more from around the world. Mm-hmm. Obviously, sad to say, all that positive momentum is in the context of other geographies and other areas becoming more inward-looking outside of this region, right, and maybe not necessarily following some of the successful policies they had in the past. And that's also, that's where I say to my team, you're doing very well, but there's a push factor as well coming from other places that aren't. And I think that there's a lot of push factor pushing a lot of business to the Middle East and the wider region. I include the Indian subcontinent, Africa, Southern Europe, CIS, and Turkey. But I think that we're in a great period of time, and the next 10 years definitely is an opportunity for everyone here. And I think that you can see so many people in this room from the region, and I think if we continue to work together, we're going to be in a very strong position, I think, by 2030 and beyond.
What's the most exciting thing that keeps you up at night? It has to be exciting, though. Let's close with that.
I mean, look, thank God, we live in a city that it's not work that keeps me up at night. Usually it's 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 been the World Cup these days, which we've been thoroughly enjoying, and I have to thank Qatar for putting it on here for us, because it's changed all of us. We're all jet lagged, and I've also had the pleasure of going to see a match in the early stages, and the organization was superb. So I think all of us, if you ask anyone at this time in Dubai, they'll be lying if they don't have the same answer as me, because everybody's really enjoyed this, and we're all disappointed that Sunday it's over.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, thank you again. Much. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
This has been the Skift Podcast. Thank you for listening.